The night Valerie Pike had my electricity shut off, freezing rain was coming sideways across Cedar Hollow, and every house on my street was glowing warm and yellow except mine. I stood on my front porch in socks, holding a flashlight under my chin, staring across the road at Valerie's house. She was behind her glass storm door in a red sweater, holding a mug like she was watching a show she'd paid for. I shouted, "Did you have my power cut?" She opened the door 3 inches and smiled. "You were warned, Tom. Rules are rules." Then she closed it in my face. What Valerie didn't know was that I had spent 32 years building the company that managed electrical infrastructure across half that county. She thought she had just taught an old man a lesson. By sunrise, she was going to learn the difference between having authority and pretending you do. My name is Thomas Reed. I'm 63, divorced, 2 grown daughters, bad left knee, worst taste in frozen pizza. I moved to Cedar Hollow, outside Asheville, North Carolina, because I wanted quiet. After decades of emergency calls, substations, hurricanes, boardrooms, and politicians who became electrical engineers whenever cameras showed up, I had stepped away from daily operations at Piedmont Grid Services, the company I founded in 1994. I still owned the controlling share and sat on the board. But my neighbors just knew me as the guy who walked his mud at 6 in the morning and forgot his trash cans. Valerie ran the Cedar Hollow Homeowners Association like a small country with no constitution. She was always perfectly dressed, always carrying a binder, and somehow capable of turning mulch depth into a moral issue. My first month there, she warned me that my mailbox was weathered beyond community standards. I told her, "Valerie, it's a mailbox, not a Supreme Court justice." She didn't laugh. The real trouble started when I installed a home battery system in my garage, solar panels, storage batteries, automatic transfer equipment, all permitted and inspected by the county. Valerie sent me 3 notices claiming the equipment was visually inconsistent with neighborhood character, which was impressive considering it was inside my garage behind a solid door. I answered with copies of every permit and highlighted the section saying the HOA had no jurisdiction over certified utility equipment. Valerie replied with 1 sentence. "The board will determine what the board has jurisdiction over." Then the ice storm came. Around 8:30 that Friday night, my lights blinked twice and died. The furnace stopped. The refrigerator went quiet. At first I figured a tree had come down, until I looked outside. The Hendersons had lights. The Cho family had lights. Even Mr. Wilkins' ridiculous blue Christmas reindeer were flashing across his lawn, and this was February. Only my house was dark. I opened the utility app and saw customer disconnect, administrative safety hold. Under it, requesting party, Cedar Hollow HOA. That's when I walked across the street. "You had no authority to do that," I told Valerie through the rain. She leaned against the doorframe. "Your battery system was operating without HOA authorization during a severe weather event. It wasn't operating." "That's not what our records show." "What records?" She lifted her mug. "Board records." "Turn it back on. You'll need to pay the violation assessment first. $750. After that, the board can review reinstatement Monday." It was Friday night. I said, "You cut power to a 63-year-old man's house in an ice storm over a battery system you can't even see." She shrugged. "Maybe next time you'll take compliance seriously." I almost lost my temper. Almost. Then something settled in me. "Okay," I said. Valerie smiled. "Good. No. I mean okay. Now I understand what kind of problem this is." Her smile faded. Back home, I lit 2 camping lanterns and called our compliance director, Maria Alvarez. She answered, "Tom, you know it's 9:30, right? Look up a manual disconnect at Cedar Hollow." A few seconds passed. "Tom, this is your address." "I know." 20 minutes later, we had the answer. Valerie had found an old HOA emergency access account created years earlier when Cedar Hollow still used shared irrigation pumps. It was supposed to request inspections, not residential shutoffs, but a software migration had preserved one obsolete permission. Valerie claimed my system posed an unverified backfeed risk, and a new overnight technician approved the hold without checking the permit database. Maria said, "I can restore you now." "Not yet. Document everything, freeze that HOA credential, and audit every request made through it for the last 5 years." "You think this goes deeper?" I think people who misuse authority once usually practice first. By Saturday afternoon, Maria called back. We found 11 improper requests. Some were meter inspections used to pressure residents over unrelated HOA disputes. An elderly couple had been threatened with a service review because their grandson parked a work van overnight. A single mother got a bogus electrical safety warning 3 days after arguing with Valerie over dues. Then the audit found something bigger. The clubhouse had an unpermitted kitchen expansion. Valerie's brother-in-law had run power from a common area panel into his workshop, and 3 meters had missing tamper seals. I didn't need revenge anymore. Valerie had built her own case. Monday morning, utility trucks rolled into Cedar Hollow. Inspectors photographed the illegal feed, locked the HOA's administrative access, and issued correction notices. Valerie immediately emailed the neighborhood claiming the utility company was retaliating against community governance. That evening she knocked on my door. "You did this," she snapped. "I reported a disconnect at my own house. Those trucks showed up because of you." "No, they showed up because compliance checked the account you used." She stared at me. "You think you're clever because you know somebody at the power company?" That almost made me smile. "I know a few people." She stepped closer. "I can make living here very unpleasant for you." I looked at her and said, "I think you've already demonstrated that." 2 nights later, the HOA held an emergency meeting. The clubhouse was packed. Valerie stood behind a folding table with her binder open. "This is a coordinated attempt," she announced, "to undermine elected community leadership." Mr. Henderson raised his hand. "Did you request Tom's power be shut off during the storm?" She avoided the question. Then Denise Carter stood up. Her husband used a home oxygen concentrator. "Answer him." Valerie snapped. "The action was taken for safety." Denise's voice shook. "You don't get to use electricity as punishment." What if that had been my house? That changed the room. Valerie looked straight at me. "Mr. Reed has manipulated this entire situation because he has personal connections inside Piedmont Grid Services." I stood up. "She's right about one thing." The room went silent. "I do have a connection to Piedmont." Valerie crossed her arms. "There. He admits it." I nodded. "I founded it." For about 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then someone in the back laughed because they thought I was joking. "I started the company in 1994. I served as CEO for 21 years. I still own the controlling interest and sit on the board." Valerie's face lost color. "And before anybody thinks I used that position to settle a neighborhood argument, I didn't. My own service stayed off until the normal safety review was completed. The audit was handled by compliance. The findings are theirs, not mine." Maria was sitting in the back with company counsel. She stood and handed the board a packet. 11 improper utility requests, 3 compromised meter seals, 1 unpermitted common area feed, 1 overloaded clubhouse panel, and a written determination that the HOA had no authority to order residential disconnects. Valerie flipped through the pages. "This is ridiculous." Denise said no. Cutting off his heat in an ice storm was ridiculous. Valerie pointed at me. "He set me up." I shook my head. "You didn't even know who I was. That's the point." The room got quiet. "You thought I was just some older guy you could bully because I didn't come to meetings, because I didn't argue over every notice, because I didn't care about your little title. But if I had been a retiree on a fixed income, would what you did have been okay? If that had been Denise's husband on oxygen, would rules still be rules?" Valerie had no answer. The homeowners did. Cedar Hollow's bylaws allowed a removal vote for abuse of authority. Valerie tried to delay it, claimed improper notice, then demanded that I be barred from voting because of a conflict of interest. That got the biggest laugh of the night. The vote was 38-6. Valerie was removed as president. As she gathered her binder, Denise passed her and said, "Maybe next time, try governing people instead of punishing them." I won't pretend I felt noble. I enjoyed that moment. After standing in a freezing house while Valerie drank cocoa across the street, watching her lose the one thing she valued most, control, felt good. But here's the part people argue with me about. I could have told her who I was after the first bogus notice. I could have restored my power immediately that Friday and ended everything quietly. I didn't. I let the audit run. And because I did, 11 other families learned that some of the pressure they'd been living under wasn't normal. The illegal wiring was fixed. The HOA rewrote its policies. Utility access was permanently removed from neighborhood officers. Denise helped elect a new president, a retired school principal named Ruth Bailey, who opened her first meeting by saying, "Our job is to maintain common property, not audition for Congress." A month later, Valerie put her house on the market. The last time I saw her, she was supervising movers. She looked across the street and said, "I hope you're proud of yourself." I thought about it. Then I said, "I wish you treated me decently before you found out who I was." She looked away. That stayed with me more than the vote ever did. Because respect shouldn't depend on whether the person in front of you owns the company, knows a lawyer, has money, has influence, or can fight back. The real test of character is how you treat someone when you think they have no power at all. So tell me, did I handle it the right way? Or did I let it go too far because part of me wanted Valerie to learn the lesson publicly? If somebody abuses authority against you, do you owe them a quiet warning? Or do you let the truth expose everything they've been doing? Drop your verdict in the comments, Team Tom or Team Valerie, and tell me why. And if you've ever watched someone underestimate the wrong person because of age, job, money, or appearance, tell that story too. Subscribe if you believe the best revenge isn't screaming louder. It's making sure the facts finally get heard.